If you're looking for, well, the absolute fastest way to really get the critical concepts for successful robotic process automation deployment,
Mhm.
particularly around, the business analysis and managing the tech using UiPath, then you are definitely in the right place.
Yeah, we're taking all those technical documents, the exam guides, all that stuff, and our mission today, it's really to cut straight to the heart of what makes these implementations work. We're hitting the foundations. The business case, how you document processes, the testing, the core tools. What we want you to walk away with are those maybe surprising insights that really bridge the gap between theory and, well, practical success.
Exactly. This isn't about reading a textbook, is it? It's figuring out what actually separates a high ROI automation project from one that maybe gets bogged down in development hell.
Or worse, breaks right after lunch.
Right. So we're focusing on those key definitions, those little distinctions that actually stick with you long after you listen.
Okay, let's do it. No point wasting time. Let's maybe start near the end of the project, those really critical final steps. Validation, stabilization, that kind of thing.
Okay, so the developers say, right, code's done. The business analyst, the BA, steps back in for that crucial final sign-off. When you're getting ready for production, where does the BA's main responsibility really lie for making sure the automation actually delivers what the business needed?
That absolutely falls under user acceptance testing, UAT. That's the one.
UAT. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of the final checkpoint, the last mile. The BA usually coordinates it because, well, they hold the original requirements. Their job is making sure the end users, the people who actually did the process manually before, confirm that this new automated way meets those initial business needs perfectly.
Got it. So UAT is that big check before going live. But, we all know this. Deploying into the real world always throws up surprises, things you just couldn't catch in testing. So what happens right after that switch is flipped? That moment the automation goes live and maybe things get a bit chaotic.
That immediately kicks off the hypercare phase.
Hypertear.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it like an intensive care unit for the new bot. Its main purpose isn't adding new features or anything like that. It's strictly about getting things stable quickly. So finding and fixing any immediate defects, maybe configuration issues, bugs that only showed up once it hit the real production environment, real data volumes.
That distinction feels really important. I can easily imagine those two phases blurring, can't you? Stakeholders may be seeing hypercare as just more development time. Scope creep.
Oh, precisely. That's a huge risk. If UAT was rushed or not done well, hypercare can become an absolute nightmare. It's critical to set expectations up front. Hypercare is short, it's defined, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks typically, and it's purely about fixing what was deployed. If you start letting new requirements sneak in during hypercare, you just risk destabilizing everything right at the start. Derails the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. That brings a lot of clarity to how that end stage should work. Now let's zoom in a bit on the BA's role during the actual development phase. Because, the BA prepares test data, they validate outputs. Stakeholders often think they're practically part of the coding team. What's some of the biggest misunderstanding about the BA's job there? The kind that can actually slow things down.
The main one, I think, is that the BA is going to handle any of the technical heavy lifting, the implementation itself. Look, the BA prepares the as-is process map, defines the to-be requirements, gets the test data ready, manages sign-offs, all crucial. But they are definitively not responsible for writing the actual RPA code or designing those complex technical workflows. That's the developer's job. If you pull the BA into writing detailed technical specs or, I don't know, debugging C# code,
Right.
it just pulls them away from managing the requirements, which is their core function.
Yeah.
And that stalls the project.
So the BA is more like the architect and the quality inspector, making sure that the developer sticks to the blueprint.
Exactly that, yes. They own the what and the why, not the specialized how of the actual coding.
That clarity on roles is just fundamental for efficiency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, let's rewind a bit, because deployment chaos, like we talked about, often stems from, well, poor analysis right at the beginning. So back at that opportunity assessment stage, how do we even pick which processes are good candidates? If you've got a choice, say, between a really high-value process, but it's kind of messy, constantly changing, and maybe a lower-value one, but it's super repetitive, predictable, what's the single most critical factor for automation success?
Yeah, this one often runs counter to people's intuition. You'd think, oh, go for the high strategic value. But actually, the most critical factor, overwhelmingly, is the repeatability and the rule-based nature of the process.
Okay. Repeatability and rules.
Absolutely. If a process needs complex human judgment calls all the time, or the rules are constantly shifting, even if it seems really valuable, it's actually a terrible candidate for RPA. Stability is just. It trumps complexity every single time for basic RPA. Automation thrives on stable, predictable rules. If those rules are fuzzy or always changing, the bot's just going to fail constantly.
That makes total sense when you put it like that. We're building machines to follow instructions precisely, not really to improvise. Okay, so once we've found a suitable, repeatable process, we need that blueprint. The process definition and document, the PDD, which specific section in that PDD is all about capturing the current state. Detailing all the manual steps, the systems used, the exceptions people handle.
That would be the as-is process description. Yeah. That section is just non-negotiable. It has to be the foundation. It needs to meticulously detail the process exactly as it runs manually right now. Every click, every system interaction, every workaround, every decision point. Because if your as-is description is inaccurate or incomplete, well, your requirements for the automated to-be process will be flawed too, and that basically guarantees you're going to have a really rough hypercare period later on.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
So too much.
And as we translate those as-is steps into the formal requirements for the to-be state, we need a system to make sure nothing gets missed.
Yeah.
We often follow standards like ABAv1, the business analysis body of knowledge. Why is the requirements traceability matrix, the RTM, considered so vital under these kinds of principles?
The main purpose of the RTM really is about accountability and ensuring completeness. It stops things falling through the cracks. It ensures that all the requirements you've defined actually link back to the business objectives you stated up front, and that they've been addressed somewhere in the project lifecycle. So the RTM connects every single requirement back to its business goal and then forward to how it's going to be tested. It's kind of the BA's shield against scope creep, and it's the ultimate proof, really, that the final solution actually delivered on the original promise.
Okay, planning's solid, documentation's good. Now we need the central nervous system to actually manage this growing digital workforce.
Yeah.
When we talk about managing and scaling RPA, especially with UiPath, which core component is the one that centrally manages, monitors, and deploys all the automation jobs, the robots, the processes?
That's got to be UiPath Orchestrator.
Orchestrator.
Right. Yeah, it's the brain. It's the control tower for the whole operation. Orchestrator lets you deploy automations instantly across different environments. It handles all the job scheduling. It provides those detailed audit logs you absolutely need for compliance. And it's essential for scaling up. You really can't run a serious enterprise-level RPA program without Orchestrator governing everything.
Sounds like the absolute linchpin for operations.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's dig into the technical side a bit more. Specifically, how failures are handled maybe within the standard UiPath framework. If an automation hits a problem, you have to classify that failure correctly so the right support team looks at it. Let's say a process hits a specific rule-based condition that isn't met, like an invoice comes through and the total amount is over a predefined spending limit set by the business. How should the status for that transaction be set in the framework?
Okay, good scenario. In that specific case where the failure is because a predefined business rule was broken, that transaction status must be set as a business exception. And that distinction is probably one of the most important ones you make in failure reporting.
Why is it so crucial? I mean, the outcome's the same, isn't it? The transaction didn't complete.
But it changes everything for the support team and who needs to fix it. A business exception basically tells the support team, don't call the developers, call the process owner or the business team. It means the bot didn't break. It actually ran the rules correctly, but the data itself failed a business validation check. An application exception, on the other hand, that's a technical fault. The system crashed, maybe a database connection died, a screen element wasn't found, something technical broke. If you misclassify that business exception like the invoice limit as an application exception, you end up wasting valuable developer time trying to debug code that's actually working perfectly fine.
Wow, okay, that's a fantastic point for just resource allocation and getting fixes done efficiently. Brilliant. Now, let's pivot back slightly, back to finding those automation opportunities in the first place. For the BA who's out there, hunting for processes to automate, which specific UiPath discovery solution tool actually records what a user does on their desktop and then automatically creates those detailed process maps and flow diagrams you need for the PDD?
That's the real workhorse for documentation, UiPath Task Capture.
Task Capture.
Yep. Think of it like the ultimate shadow. It sits there and passively records the user's actions step by step, click by click, and then it generates the process maps, the flow diagrams, even generates descriptions of the steps. It dramatically speeds up that whole documentation phase. It creates the core of that critical as-is PDD we were talking about earlier. It basically does the really tedious documentation work that, frankly, most BAs would rather avoid if they could.
I can imagine. Okay, one last area. Let's touch on AI, specifically for getting data into the system. UiPath Document Understanding. These models are trained to read documents and pull out information. If you're using a methodology that relies on a fixed, pre-trained model or a template-based approach, which type of document structure gives you the best, most accurate results?
For those model-based or template-based methods, you absolutely want to target structured documents.
Structured, okay, like what?
Think of things like standardized forms, maybe a specific tax form or an internal company form where the fields are always in the exact same place. Because that layout is fixed and predictable, the machine learning models can be trained really effectively to find the data fields. The structure is consistent. That consistency leads to really high accuracy and reliable data extraction. The minute you start moving into semi-structured documents, things like invoices where the vendor layout changes all the time, the complexity shoots up, and usually the error rate does too. Hashtag tag outro.
So here's something to think about. What repeatable, rule-based process are you maybe overlooking in your own day-to-day work? Perhaps because it seems too small, too insignificant to bother automating. Think about how much time you or your team might be spending on those predictable clicks and tasks day in, day out.
Yeah, definitely something worth pondering. Until next time.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.